That amber whiskey in your glass might look like centuries of craftsmanship, but there's a real chance you're drinking an industrial illusion. Historic labels, wax seals, and premium shelf placement create the image of heritage, while global giants like Diageo, Bacardi, and Pernod Ricard exploit regulatory loopholes to stretch cheap grain spirit into premium bottles. Some rely on caramel coloring, hidden flavor systems, and even chemicals once flagged by European regulators just to mask how young or artificial the liquid really is. Today we're putting the whiskey aisle on trial, 7 popular bottles to avoid, and 3 that still respect the craft. Stay until the end, because the #1 bottle isn't even legally whiskey. 7. Dewar's White Label. Let us begin with a bar rail staple built entirely on an optical illusion, Dewar's White Label. When you see that distinctive bottle with heritage branding dating back to 1846, the golden amber liquid inside screams of Scottish tradition and patient maturation. You trust those visual cues, but that color is a calculated corporate lie. The deception accelerated when the global rum conglomerate Bacardi acquired the brand in 1998. From that moment, volume completely trumped craftsmanship. Bacardi actively exploits the incredibly loose Scotch Whisky Regulations 2009, overseen by the Scotch Whisky Association (SWA). Under these specific rules, corporate distillers are legally permitted to alter their product with a deceptive chemical additive, E15OA, also known as Class 1 plain caramel. Here is how the fraud operates mechanically. Dewar's White Label is a blended Scotch containing roughly 60 to 70% industrial grain whiskey. This cheap grain filler, pumped out of continuous column stills, is harsh, overwhelmingly young, barely meeting the 3-year legal minimum, and virtually transparent. If Bacardi bottled it in its natural state, it would look like pale straw or dirty water. Consumers would immediately spot the lack of age and refuse the price tag. By injecting E15OA directly into the vat, they artificially darken the liquid. This synthetic dye tricks your sensory receptors. You see mahogany and anticipate deep oak and time-honored complexity. Instead, the liquid delivers a sharp, chemical ethanol burn that coats the mouth, masking a fundamentally immature spirit. The casualty is the budget-conscious consumer, paying a premium for the prestigious word Scotch on the label, only to be served an artificially dyed industrial filler engineered solely for maximum profit margins. Dewar's uses legal caramel coloring to fake a mature age, but our #6 brand uses a massive industrial operation to strip away the very flavor you are paying for. 6. Jameson Irish Whiskey. Step into any bar, and you will see the iconic green bottle of Jameson Irish Whiskey. They aggressively market their signature triple distilled process as a testament to traditional Irish craftsmanship and superior smoothness. Consumers inherently trust this narrative, equating a perfectly smooth profile with high quality. But that smoothness is actually the systematic elimination of flavor, engineered by the French multinational conglomerate Pernod Ricard. The reality behind the marketing is pure industrial beverage manufacturing. All Jameson globally originates from a single massive facility, the Middleton Distillery. Here, they churn out a staggering 31 million bottles per year. You are not buying a traditional craft product. You are consuming a mass-produced commodity. Pernod Ricard actively exploits the extraordinarily broad definitions established within the Irish Whiskey Act of 1980, a legal framework that allows them to heavily dilute traditional pot still whiskey with cheap, entirely neutral high-proof grain spirit. Here is the mechanical truth that the Food Safety Authority of Ireland (FSAI) legally permits under these relaxed regulations. By taking the whiskey through a 3rd distillation phase using massive, highly efficient column stills, the manufacturer intentionally strips away the heavy, complex ester compounds and natural oils that give authentic Irish whiskey its rich character. The resulting liquid is pushed to such a high proof that it becomes nearly tasteless. They then blend this neutral grain filler back into the final product to stretch their profit margins across those 31 million bottles. The smoothness you are tasting is not a sign of premium aging or care. It is the physical, chemical absence of flavor components. For buyers expecting genuine Irish heritage, you're paying a premium for a liquid engineered to be as bland and inoffensive as possible. While Jameson prioritizes industrial scale over traditional craft, our #5 pick relies on a shocking legal loophole to pump mystery liquids into your glass. 5. Crown Royal. We move from industrial scale to legalized adulteration. When you purchase Crown Royal, the luxurious purple velvet bag, the crown-shaped glass bottle, and the regal marketing immediately signal prestige and premium quality. You inherently trust that packaging as a guarantee of a pure, top-tier spirit. But beneath the royal presentation lies a meticulously engineered deception. Owned by the massive spirits corporation Diageo, this brand actively exploits a staggering legal loophole codified directly under the Canadian Food and Drug Regulations (FDR), Section B.02.020. While American bourbon enforces strict purity laws, current U.S./Canada trade standards permit this product to be legally sold across the United States despite containing a massive 9.09% allowance for non-whiskey additives. The TTB Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau turns a blind eye, fully permitting this adulterated liquid to cross the border and sit on your bar cart without a single warning label. Mechanically, this 9.09% loophole fundamentally destroys the definition of pure whiskey. It means that literally 1/11th of the volume inside that premium bottle does not have to be whiskey at all. To mask the fundamentally cheap, neutral 95% corn spirit base, the manufacturer can legally pump the liquid full of wine, fruit juices, and a proprietary cocktail of undisclosed flavoring compounds. Because there is zero legal requirement to disclose these additives to the public, they use these synthetic components to artificially engineer flavor consistency rather than achieving it through authentic patient barrel aging. You are blindly drinking a lab-engineered taste profile. For consumers paying top dollar for what they assume is a pure grain spirit, you are actually financing a heavily manipulated, artificially flavored concoction. If mystery juices in your Canadian whiskey sound bad, wait until you hear why European authorities had to pull our number 4 off the shelves entirely. 4. Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. We now escalate from hidden flavorings to documented chemical contamination. Walk into any college bar, and Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey dominates the shot glasses. The aggressively sweet, red-hot candy flavor completely masks the alcohol, tricking young consumers into rapid consumption. You think you are drinking a fun cinnamon-infused spirit, but you are actually swallowing an industrial solvent delivery system. The Sazerac company built an empire on this heavily manipulated liquid, but international regulators caught them. In 2014, government agencies including Avira Finland and Systembolaget Sweden initiated a massive recall, pulling Fireball completely off European shelves. The trigger? The liquid was contaminated with propylene glycol PG, C3H802, an active compound used in aviation antifreeze. The EFSA, European Food Safety Authority, explicitly mandates a strict safety limit of 3 grams per kilogram for this chemical. The American formula of Fireball brazenly exceeded this European health threshold, yet the manufacturer kept selling the exact same chemical cocktail to unsuspecting Americans. The deception also continues domestically. In 2023, the brand was hit with a class action lawsuit filed by Marquez against Sazerac Company, accusing the company of misleading consumers by selling miniature gas station bottles that contain 0 actual whiskey. Mechanically, why is an anti-freeze compound in your drink? Because Fireball is bottled at a highly diluted 33% ABV. At that weak proof, cheap artificial cinnamon flavor, esters naturally separate, turning the liquid milky, cloudy, and unappealing. Propylene glycol PG, C3H802, operates as a powerful industrial emulsifier, aggressively forcing the synthetic oils to dissolve completely into the cheap, young grain base, so the liquid remains visually clear. For partygoers slamming these shots, you are ingesting literal chemical solvents engineered solely to hide a chemically manufactured, inferior product. Fireball poisoned its own well with chemical solvents, but the next brand commits a geographic fraud that literally spans the globe. 3. Suntory Toki. We transition from chemical contamination to widespread geographical fraud. Look at the trendy minimalist bottle of Suntory Toki sitting on almost every high-end cocktail bar. The elegant kanji, the rising sun marketing, and the premium price tag all convince you that you are purchasing authentic, meticulously crafted Japanese heritage. You pay top dollar expecting the legendary terroir and precision of authentic Asian distilleries. But that label is a masterclass in international deception. For years, the massive conglomerate Suntory Beam Suntory ruthlessly exploited a shocking regulatory void. Until very recently, Japan had absolutely no legal definition for what constituted their own whiskey. This allowed the company to quietly import massive, undisclosed quantities of cheap, bulk Scottish spirit directly from their own overseas distilleries. They shipped this raw alcohol across the ocean in massive industrial containers, pumped it into bottles on Japanese soil, and legally sold it to unsuspecting Americans at a massive luxury premium. The deception became so globally embarrassing that the JSLMA Japan Spirits and Liqueurs Makers Association was finally forced to intervene, implementing strict new origin rules that only took full effect in April 2024. Mechanically, this is pure geographical arbitrage. By importing cheap, bulk Scottish spirit instead of patiently distilling and aging the liquid domestically, the manufacturer completely bypasses the immense costs and time required for authentic Japanese production. The liquid inside the Toki bottle is fundamentally an international blend. They are selling you a cheap Scottish filler product wearing a premium Japanese costume. For enthusiasts seeking genuine craftsmanship, you are overpaying for an outsourced illusion designed to capitalize on a global trend. Suntory Toki exploits geography for profit, but our runner-up for the worst whiskey exploits its own legendary heritage just to sell you a cheap ethanol burn. 2. Johnnie Walker, Red Label. We now arrive at the ultimate exploitation of legacy. Johnnie Walker Red Label, featuring its iconic slanted label and striding man logo, commands instant respect worldwide. You see the famous Walker name and instinctively trust its centuries of Scottish blending mastery. But that consumer trust is being actively weaponized to sell an aggressively harsh, bottom-tier liquid. The global spirits monolith Diageo engineers this specific bottle purely for maximum profit extraction. To achieve these massive margins, they rely heavily on the Cameron Bridge Distillery, a gigantic industrial complex churning out cheap, neutral-grain alcohol. Consequently, Red Label is padded with a staggering 60 to 70% grain whiskey filler. Furthermore, Diageo ruthlessly exploits the baseline regulations enforced by the SWA Scotch Whisky Association. The law mandates Scotch be aged for a minimum of 3 years. Red Label is routinely rushed out of the casks at exactly 3 years and 1 day, the absolute legal minimum required to legally print Scotch on the glass. Mechanically, this extreme rush to market creates a severe, measurable chemical flaw: high ethanol volatility. Authentic maturation requires patient microoxidation, a natural process where oxygen slowly interacts with the oak barrel to break down harsh alcohol molecules and bind them with smooth wood tannins. Because Red Label is prematurely pulled from the cask, this vital chemical reaction never finishes. The volatile ethanol molecules remain entirely unbound. When you take a sip, those raw alcohol vapors immediately assault your nasal cavity and burn your taste receptors, creating an abrasive chemical harshness that completely obliterates any subtle malt character. For budget consumers trusting the historic Walker name, you are financing a corporate efficiency exercise that fundamentally sacrifices drinkability. Johnnie Walker Red pushes the absolute legal limits of cheap Scotch, but our #1 worst bottle isn't even legally whiskey at all. 1. Jack Daniel's Tennessee Honey. We finally reached the ultimate betrayal of consumer trust and brand heritage. Look at a bottle of Jack Daniel's Tennessee Honey. It intentionally mimics the iconic squared-off old No. 7 packaging. You see that classic typography and immediately assume you are buying authentic Tennessee whiskey gently infused with natural apiary honey. But that assumption is entirely false. You are not buying whiskey at all. You are buying liquid candy masquerading as a premium spirit. The hard evidence lies within federal regulatory filings. According to the strict TTB class and type designation, this product is legally stripped of the title whiskey because the manufacturer deliberately dilutes the alcohol down to a weak 35% ABV and pumps it full of excessive sweetening agents. The federal government officially downgrades and classifies it as a mere liqueur. The historic Lynchburg distillery built a 150-year legacy on the meticulous Lincoln County process, a painstaking method of mellowing raw spirit drop by drop through 10 feet of sugar maple charcoal. Yet, all of that expensive, time-consuming craftsmanship is intentionally obliterated in this specific bottle. Mechanically, here is how the sensory deception operates. Instead of real high-quality honey, the liquid is heavily saturated with industrial sucrose, high fructose corn syrup, and highly concentrated artificial honey flavorants. When you take a sip, this massive payload of refined sugar physically coats your palate. The thick, cloying syrup severely saturates your tongue, actively paralyzing your taste receptors. This chemical overload makes it biologically impossible for your brain to detect the nuanced oak, smoke, or charcoal notes that define actual Tennessee whiskey. For beginners hoping to explore whiskey, you are being manipulated into drinking an alcoholic dessert that destroys your palate and the very heritage of the brand itself. Go check your bar cart right now. If you see any of these 7, reconsider keeping them. But real whiskey still exists. Here are 3 bottles that actually deliver true craftsmanship. Safe Pick 1. Nikka from the Barrel. We just prosecuted Suntory for geographic deception, but true integrity in the Japanese whiskey market does exist, and it is built on radical transparency. Look at Nikka from the Barrel. For years, the industry standard was Tao quietly blend imported liquids and slap a premium Japanese label on the glass. Consumers blindly trusted the aesthetic, but the conglomerate Asahi/Nikka chose a completely different path. In 2021, years before the Japan Spirits and Liqueurs Makers Association officially enforced their strict new labeling laws regarding geographic origins, Nikka made a stunning public admission. They openly declared that Nikka from the Barrel does not meet the strict definition of pure Japanese whiskey because it actively contains imported Scottish malt sourced directly from the Ben Nevis distillery. They deliberately chose hard truth over highly profitable deception. Mechanically, this bottle is a masterclass in respecting the liquid and the consumer's palate. While the bad brands we exposed heavily dilute their products down to the legal minimum of 40% ABV to stretch their profit margins, Nikka from the Barrel is intentionally bottled at a massive 51.4% ABV. Why does this specific measurement matter? Because at this high proof, the complex esters, natural fatty acids, and heavy flavor containers remain completely intact and perfectly suspended within the liquid. They do not need to rely on chemical emulsifiers or synthetic coloring to artificially enhance the profile. The robust Scottish malt from Ben Nevis seamlessly marries with the delicate Japanese components, delivering an uncompromised, full-bodied intensity. For whiskey enthusiasts exhausted by corporate shell games and hidden origins, this bottle represents absolute honesty. You know exactly what you are paying for, a spectacular, high-proof international blend that refuses to lie to its consumers. Transparency matters. And our next pick proves that traditional methods still survive. Safe pick number 2. Redbreast 12-Year. We previously indicted Jameson for mass-producing a stripped-down, flavorless industrial liquid and hiding it behind the romantic illusion of Irish tradition. If you want to experience what authentic, uncorrupted Irish whiskey actually tastes like before the mega corporations homogenize the category, you must look at Redbreast 12-Year. This bottle, ironically produced by the very same umbrella company, Irish Distillers, represents the exact opposite of modern cost-cutting blending culture. Instead of quietly substituting expensive ingredients with cheap column still grain alcohol to maximize profit margins, Redbreast adheres strictly to the ancient single-pot still technical specifications. Under this rigorous historical definition, the mash bill must legally contain a minimum of 30% malted and 30% unmalted barley, all distilled entirely within traditional copper pot stills. Furthermore, while the bad brands we exposed ruthlessly hide the extreme youth of their liquids by removing age statements entirely, Redbreast stamps a definitive, legally binding 12-year age guarantee on the label. Every single drop inside that glass has spent over a decade maturing in premium oak casks. Mechanically, this is why the specific 30% unmalted barley requirement is absolutely crucial for your palate. Unmalted barley is incredibly rich in natural lipids and complex grain proteins. When subjected to the heat of a traditional copper pot still, these heavy compounds survive the distillation process. They physically coat your mouth, creating a distinctively thick, creamy, and spicy texture that industrial continuous stills are specifically designed to destroy. You get an authentic, heavy-bodied mouthfeel built entirely by agricultural science, not by chemical emulsifiers. And because it sits in oak for a verified 12-year minimum, the deep amber color is 100% naturally extracted from the wood. No E15OA synthetic dyes required. For purists who demand actual craftsmanship over marketing fluff, Redbreast 12-Year is the definitive benchmark of Irish heritage. For those seeking true Irish heritage, Redbreast delivers. And for our final safe pick number 3, Glenfiddich 12-Year. We close our safe list with a bottle that actively defies the modern era of corporate consolidation. Walk down any liquor aisle, and the ubiquitous green triangular bottle of Glenfiddich 12-Year might look like just another mass-produced commodity. You might assume that because it is universally available, it has succumbed to the exact same cost-cutting measures as Johnnie Walker Red Label, but that assumption completely underestimates the power of fierce, structural independence. This brand stands as a fortified wall against the mega corporations. It is proudly owned by William Grant & Sons, a company that has fiercely maintained its independent family ownership for over 130 years. While competitors have been swallowed whole by massive conglomerates like Diageo, who immediately strip mine the acquired heritage to appease Wall Street shareholders, the Grant family has consistently rejected corporate buyout pressure. This independence is the hard evidence of their integrity, because they do not answer to quarterly profit demands. They are not forced to artificially inflate their margins by pumping their bottles full of cheap, harsh industrial grain alcohol. Mechanically, this financial independence allows them to strictly adhere to the rigorous single malt Scotch designation. By law, every single drop inside this bottle is distilled from 100% pure malted barley at a single distillery. There is absolutely zero neutral grain filler. Furthermore, they refuse to drop their age statement to hide immature liquid, legally guaranteeing a minimum 12-year maturation in oak casks. This patient decade of micro-oxidation allows the harsh, volatile ethanol molecules to fully break down, leaving behind only the complex, natural fruit esters, specifically the signature pear and apple notes that define the Speyside region. You are tasting the actual agricultural yield of malt and thyme, not the sharp burn of a 3-year-old industrial shortcut. For the everyday consumer, Glenfiddich proves that true Scotch whiskey does not require a rare allocation or a luxury markup to deliver authentic, unadulterated quality. Independent family ownership proves craftsmanship survives consolidation. So, here is the bottom line. Real whiskey is about patience, oak, and purity. Industrial whiskey is just chemical solvents, caramel dye, and corporate profit. Now check your bar cart. Are you pouring one of these 7 deceptive bottles, or have you found a transparent alternative? Drop your go-to brand in the comments below. If you refuse to be fooled by heritage marketing gimmicks anymore, hit that like button and subscribe. Stay sharp, stay skeptical, and I will see you in the next investigation.